Harvestella is a game that I have had my eyes on since it was announced a little while ago this year. And reason being is I am a huge fan of farming games like Story of Seasons and especially Rune Factory. So when I saw that Square Enix was taking on the Rune Factory mantra and making it its own, I was extremely excited for this because the most recent Rune Factory kind of was a letdown. And when it comes to Square Enix, they're the ones that do Final Fantasy, Octopath, Live Alive, and a ton of other games that are just absolutely amazing RPGs. So when they said they were taking on the farming sim genre, I was more than over the moon about it. And everything I've seen from Harvestella, from the press releases to the gameplay to the different events that they've had so far for it, have all really caught my interest. So yesterday, when the Nintendo Direct happened, they announced that they released a demo for Harvestella, which is what we're talking about today. And after playing the first couple of chapters, around 5 hours and the first 15 days of the game in Harvestella, which 15 days essentially just means that the game allows you to play full 15 in-game days before the demo stops, I now have a very good idea of what Harvestella is, what it brings to the table, and if it's something to keep your eye on. What's going on, everybody? I am Dom, and I am from The Game Looters, and today we're talking about a very unique game, Harvestella, by our friends over at Square Enix. Like I said earlier, this game aims to take on the farming sim JRPG genre and kind of a mashup of both. What I will say kind of right off the bat, the thing that I guess surprised me in a way is this is definitely more focused on the JRPG side than the farming side. Now, again, I only played about roughly 5 hours. It was just a little under 5 hours because I might have had some like idle time in there. So I would say about 4.5-ish hours is what I played of the game. And I played the first 15 days. So essentially the game starts off with you creating your character, choosing male, female, or non-binary. So a very inclusive offerings when it comes to your created character. Now, I will say the created character is pretty unique. They only offer around 4 different templates for each one. Basically, you get 4 male options and 4 female options, and both sides of it are a little blend of both. So you can easily go with whichever one kind of suits your fancy. So I definitely think the inclusivity offer and the created character offer, although not very robust, at least there are some different options into picking out your created character. So you pick your created character and you immediately jump into the game, and you are introduced to the season called Quietus. So essentially there are 4 seasons in the game, just like there are in real life, but there's essentially a 5th season, which is called Quietus, which is the season of death. Now, during the season of death, you are basically outside and you are traveling or traversing the world, and you get stuck out in Quietus, and you meet this very unique looking individual who you can basically kind of I don't want to say, you could basically assert this person to similar to like a maybe like a god or goddess or some kind of like idol, or basically somebody of a higher power. And they essentially put you in this alternate world and basically say, hey, are you going to save this world or allow it to perish? And what ends up happening is you wake up during the Quietus and you immediately fall asleep and you knock out in the middle of nowhere. And you get found by a doctor of a nearby village, and you have amnesia, you don't remember who you are. Eventually, the story begins to kind of take place. You find out that there is a village nearby. You find out that there are the seasons. You find out there's this huge rock in the vista, this huge crystal, and essentially it is a crystal that has been causing the seasons of changing, and this death season called Quietus. Later on, there is a huge crystal that ends up invading this village and just dropping out of the sky like a big old meteor. There ends up being a person inside of there where you finally decide to save along with the doctor, and you get essentially, I don't want to ruin it, but essentially you get a future companion out of that. But this person is revered from the village people as kind of like a bad omen, essentially. So you get to meet this person who is now claiming to be from the future. Also, while this is occurring, you begin going on your adventure. So they introduce you to the farm features. So this is kind of where I said like the farming kind of takes a backseat, at least for the first few hours of the game, to where the doctor of the village essentially then assigns you a home, or I guess the mayor of the village assigns you a home, gives you a home, and the doctor kind of gives you a day-to-day, like, hey, just kind of take it easy, but you're going to have to fend for yourself if you're going to live here kind of thing. They give you a farm, they give you kind of some tips and tricks, they give you some seedlings, and they kind of tell you that, hey, in town, if you want more seeds, you can go in town and buy more. So you begin your farming adventure there. You put down some seeds, you begin, doing the crops and stuff. You're able to very Rune Factory-like plant the seeds, water the seeds, grab and harvest the seeds, and then you're able to basically harvest a full whatever you're actually planting there, whether it be lettuce or onions or carrots or wheat or grass, whatever it is, you're able to harvest whatever you're planting there. And you have one of two options. You can either keep it on your person, you can put it in your storage if you want to hold on to it later for a resource for you to be able to kind of craft items with it later on, or you can put it in a specific box just like Rune Factory, and you can send it off to essentially get money. And money is going to be something that you will need at least for the first few hours of the game, because you're going to want to be able to get different items inside of the shops inside of the town that are going to allow you to go out and explore further and farther. So the farming piece of it is it's a very quality of life farming, because no longer do you have to go and like fill up your bucket of water and stuff. You can use magic to actually lay down water. You can easily plant stuff. You have a good plot of land there. And from what I looked around the house, there seems to be another plot of land as well. So you're going to have multiple areas to go and actually farm out a lot of different items here. Again, the first few hours of the game is very minor. You just get introduced to like wheat and grass and carrots and onions and very smaller items. But I think as the game opens up and as you explore, you'll find other seeds, because as I was exploring too, I did find other seeds inside of a lot of different treasure boxes outside of the world. So that's going to lead me into the next section. So the biggest part of the game to me, again, I think the farming side took the backseat. I think the priority of the game goes like this, and I know I'm kind of all over the place, but bear with me. The priority of the game takes place like this. You get the story, which is the main part of the game, which is really, really cool, and really it really absorbs you in, and I think the characters are very lively. There's really good character building. So immediately you get introduced to all the people in the town. You get to know them by name. You get to build relationships with them, including this person who comes out of the sky. You get to build a relationship with them. So I think the story takes precedence over everything. Secondary, I think it's the exploration and the actual RPG factory of it, right? The actual RPG-ness of it. And then the third thing, I think, is the farming, which is kind of like how you're going to sustain yourself. So that's going to lead me into the next part, which is the actual like JRPG part of it. So you're going to get introduced, a little early on. You're going to go on your first mission and go and get a hammer. And that's going to lead you into an area where you get to go into combat. And combat is not turn-based. It's very like action combat. So essentially you have a button prompt, which is Y, that you can kind of push to engage in battle. And then as you battle more, you're going to get JP points, which count for job points, which you're going to basically be able to feed back into your character and unlock abilities. The first ability you're going to unlock is like a little fireball, and there's going to be more abilities that you can unlock as you battle more. As you progress more, you get more JP points, which allows you to unlock more stuff in your skill tree, or in your job tree, I should say. Now, when you begin doing that, your button prompts are Y, and then ZR, and X, and that's going to allow you to initiate some of your different specials. So you're going to go out there and explore and go around the different areas of the game, and you are able to go and defeat enemies and collect a lot of different items. Like I said, you're going to have your first item is a hammer that you have to go and create. So you're going to go and find all the items you need to go and craft it, which are like stones and stuff. Then the game is going to, kind of skipping further ahead, then the game's going to take you upon the next story beat, which has you explore the huge area where this really large crystal is inhabited by. and that's going to be a really wide area where I would say I kind of spent my next like 3 or 4 days in the game, and the days go by pretty quickly as well. I would say an in-game day probably lasts you somewhere around 5 to 30 minutes depending on what you're doing. Exploring wise, I would say it lasted closer to like 20-ish, 30 minutes, something like that. But if you're like traversing the overworld, it kind of goes a lot faster. But the exploration part of it is I kind of made it very far. You get to meet your next party member, and you get to recruit your next party member into your party. And now you get to have somebody who's like a companion to you in your actual party. And then you kind of get a third companion after that later on. But the exploration stuff is really, really fun. I think exploring, it was really, really cool. There is a lot of different things that you can explore. There's a lot of different treasures that you can collect, a lot of different items that you can collect, a lot of different monster variety that you can take on, at least again from the first initial hours. A lot of different monster varieties you can take on, and it does get challenging because you have to manage your stamina, your HP, and your hunger. There is a hunger mechanic in here as well, and you have to kind of eat to manage your hunger, as if you don't, your stamina begins depleting over time, and the only way to replenish it is by eating, so you need to make sure that you take food with you as well. But by the time that I kind of ended my first 15 days of the game, unfortunately, I didn't make it to the place that I wanted to. I kind of wasted a little bit more time, but again, I was introduced to your second and third party member overall. So I would say, just to kind of sum it up, Harvestella is something that's really special. I don't think it's going to blow the socks off, blow the doors off. I don't think it's going to be a masterpiece, but when it comes out, I can definitely say it's going to be at least a minimum of a solid 8 out of 10. And if you're into the farming genre, I can definitely highly recommend this, because this is doing things that I think Rune Factory didn't, which is just kind of prioritizing the JRPG part of it, the RPG elements. I think it's perfecting them a little bit better, and exploring wise, control wise, and basically think of everything that Final Fantasy brings kind of to the table, and then adding just farming on top of it kind of thing. It kind of brings elements that Rune Factory specifically, which is its biggest competitor, has just kind of been lacking. And then you have the overall presentation where it's just absolutely gorgeous and runs pretty well on the Switch where I played it as well. So overall, I think this is a must-play for farming sim fans, and I had an awesome time with my first few hours of Harvestella. And what's cool about the demo, which I say go and download now, is your save will transfer over to the main game. So definitely give this a shot. Overall, Harvestella, first impressions, very high on it. Cannot wait to play more. Cannot wait till it comes out a little later this year. And let me know what you guys thought about everything you've seen so far. Let me know what you guys thought about my thoughts here today. And any questions you have, put them in the comments. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.